Perfect. All right, let's get started. In this session, we'll be talking about mapping spatial insights to value and how to deliver results. Let's see if I can operate my PowerPoint here. All right, so let's start with the introduction. My name is Bilal. I've been at Bain for about 10 years. I started as a market researcher. And a fair question might be, what do market researchers do? And to be honest, that's a very fair question because in the world of these, you guys, data scientists, market research is a very extinct species. So what do? We use statistical techniques to really kind of understand consumer behavior and their decision making. All of that to help the organizations kind of meet their customer needs. As a market researcher, I have worked on many different projects like segmentation, loyalty analysis, pricing work, and concept testing. But I remember when I started at Bain, in my earlier part at Bain, it was I used to get a lot of simple mapping requests and spatial data science requests. Over the years, those requests became a lot more complex, and I started becoming more interested in spatial analytics to a point where I'm now leading the spatial analytics at Bain. Well, that's a little bit about my professional side. Outside work, I love to play sports, more specifically cricket, which is somewhat similar to baseball. And I guess when I say similar, the only similarity is you have a ball and a bat, and dress is very different. But I think the most interesting point over there is my wife is a U.S. national cricket team player, and so she's kind of outdone me in the sport that I love to play. All right, so whenever I talk about myself, people also want to know, what does Bain do? So at Bain, we are kind of the top management consulting firm, and what we do at Bain is we pursue to kind of deliver extraordinary results to our client. We've been trying to do that since 1973. We are in 37 different countries, and with 12 employees, we try to deliver insights to, in fact, we have delivered insights to 60% of the global 500 companies. At a high level, what a management consulting firm does, that it works with the leadership of the organizations or the companies to help improve their businesses and their operations. All right, so since we've gotten the introductions out of the way, let's dive into our topic. And let's start with the question. So the question is, what do babies and companies have in common? And I believe we have the poll come up. So I will give you guys maybe few seconds to share the results or pick the right answer. And while you're doing that, let me read out the options that are there. First one is, they're both very needy and high maintenance. They both require village to raise. Very true. They're learning about their environment. And they both get what they want by throwing a tantrum. Very true. If you are a parent of a kid, I guess you can relate to all of those options. Let me see. Let's see if I can project the results. All right, let me see if I can figure that out. Well, I guess I cannot, but the right answer that I was looking for was they're learning about their environment. And interestingly, 18 months old babies, they start developing and using their cognitive skills to really learn about their spatial surrounding. And companies of today are no different than the 18 months old babies, because they're using data and technology to explore their surrounding. And interestingly, what they both have realized, that they can use spatial awareness very strategically to get what they want. And that's why I call them, I call them the boss baby. Definitely the boss in our house is all of our kids. All right. Another reason why I consider companies to be same as babies is because similar to babies, companies also ask a lot of questions, and behind those simple questions that they ask is a deep cognitive lifelong learning that is happening. So when companies ask questions like, where are my locations, where are my clients locations on the map, where can I open up new sites, behind those questions are really what they're asking is, where do I play and how do I win? What does that mean? What that really means is when companies are asking, where are my locations or where are my competitors' locations? Tell me the new areas that I can grow in. What they're really asking is identify the growing markets that are out there to kind of help me maintain my market share or maintain my leadership position in the market. When they ask about to optimize supply chain, what they're really asking is, how do I quickly satisfy my customer needs in the most cost-effective manner to make me more competitive and a leaner? So you see, these are all the simple questions, and behind those simple questions are what are really the values that are hidden behind. And what you have to do is understand behind those simple questions are the kind of the real values that clients are trying to unlock for. Now, continuing on the same thought, let me drive that point home a little bit more with sharing with you a couple of examples from the work that I've done with some of our clients. The first example there is of a QSR company, and they had a very ambitious growth plan, which was obviously wasn't taken well by the franchisees that they had. And we came in, we developed a spatial predictive model, identified new locations, but really what we delivered was confidence in the growth plan by identifying about 3x new locations that they had originally planned for. And what this did as a result was brought the franchisees and the corporate development team close together and get alignment on the growth plan that they had. The second example there is of a chemical company who wanted to cut cost from their supply chain. What we did there was we redefined the service and cost objectives and came up with multiple optimization scenarios. And as a result, what we did was we reduced the total distance that they traveled, and not just the total distance, but total distance that they traveled by a much smaller fleet. And as a result, what we delivered was we cut their overhead cost by 50%. So in return, making them much leaner and competitive in the market. The third option or the third project there is a company that it's a dining company that we worked with, and what they were trying to do was they wanted to catch up to their competitors in the market. And what we did was we identified that they had 3 different formats type, and we developed a spatial predictive model for each format type. And as a result, we were able to identify about 3x new locations, or I guess 7x new locations that they could open up. More interestingly, what we did identify was 50% of those locations were in areas which I would call the greenfield areas, where they had first mover advantage, if you may. And so we come to the last example. We were working with a telecom company. What they were doing was they were rolling out their 5G network, and they wanted to reach out to maximum customers with the minimum number of sales towers. And we developed an optimized model to reach out to their most profitable customer. And that's the key word there, the profitable customers, because we had to identify which are the most profitable customers, and based on that, come up with an optimized model to be able to effectively reach their audience. And so if you look at all of the examples that I've shared here, basically what I'm talking about is we did do a lot of spatial analytics, but in the end, what we were focusing on were the results and the value all of our work would create. And the real question is, how do we create the value, right? And how do we deliver results against that value? And there are really kind of 4 easy steps that you can follow to be able to unlock that value the companies are looking for. The first one is focused on strategy, the business problem, and not the most apparent question the organizations are asking for. Second, co-create with them. Bring your stakeholders on a journey with you, because while you might have a compass on hand and know how to read it, they know the path that you guys are going through. So use their domain knowledge to help get a much better result. Third, what you guys are doing are really kind of bringing change, and change is never easy. So align with the top, with the change, to manage the change, and then develop your work for the end user in mind. And when those 2 things align, that's when you will have a much better results delivered to your stakeholders. And the last piece there is solutions. Solutions never work in isolation, and you have to have a much broader acceptance by the users for who you are actually creating the solutions for. So develop the analytics with that point in mind, because if the solution doesn't get used, it's of no value. So something you might have noticed while I was talking through these 4 simple things to follow to deliver result is that I never talked about analytics, because for me that's table stakes. It's a given. What isn't given is the results that we generate for our clients. So focus on that. Moving on. So far what we've talked about are some successful projects and how to kind of look at what are the real value that we can deliver to our clients. And to be honest, not all projects are successful. Sometimes they might falter. And let me ask you guys a question. What are the main reasons why do you think spatial projects fail? I have certain learnings from these spatial projects, and I can share that with you. But I would love to hear to see if you were part of a project that didn't go too well, and see if there was any learnings from your end. And while you're typing the results, an interesting kind of nugget there is the image that you see on the screen is from Apple Map. So that basically tells you the best of us can make mistakes and falter. So let me see if you guys have what have you put in the chat? It seems like it's the answers are coming in slowly. Well, I think some of the answers that I'm getting, I think I can relate to them. But let me kind of share with you some of the learnings that I had through these projects. All right, the first one, quick wins don't come. They don't come. The quick wins come too late. You have to identify and prioritize the low-hanging fruit to create more appetite. The second one is too cumbersome for daily use. Co-develop with the key partners. Ensure your workflow is simpler and superior to the existing solution. And here the key word is again, your key partners and simple solution, because that will kind of let you overcome this particular point. The third one is over-reliance on tools. That's a really good one for all of us to kind of think about, because when we are developing these algorithms or these tools or these algorithms are not the end goal, and they definitely will not sell by themselves. So what you have to again keep in mind are the end users, and help them bring into the decision making of the work that you're working on, because when you do that, you get a better buy-in, and your results or your value or the work that you're doing will stick much better. All right, what's the next one? The next one is lagging support from business leadership. So identify and create champions at the top, because it is essential for success. Otherwise, change at the bottom will be difficult to manage and will not be taken seriously. So look for those champions at the top that can help you manage that change. And then the last one is frontline disbelieves the guidance, and I've seen that a lot because what you're doing is at times groundbreaking and is not completely understood by the end user. So what I've learned is you have to do, if possible, pilot your work with at least one team or with one use case, and then create believers, promoters, because they will then spread the word and get the word out, and you will start seeing a much quicker buy-in to the work that you're doing. So something that you must have realized that, again, all of these issues are less about the analytics, more about the people in the business context. And this is the world where your results and your analytics will live in. So make sure your focus is on the simple questions. Go beyond that. Look at the value. Look at the results that you can deliver. All right. So moving on. So far, what I have talked about is hidden values behind, simple questions, and how to unlock those values and deliver results on top of that. What I have not talked about is that the need for results are different for different organizations, and that needs really depend on where the organization is on their spatial journey. So I'm going to use this framework that I've laid out on the slide to help navigate through different phases of the spatial journey I've seen different organizations go through. All right, so the x-axis there is organization's need. On the left side, you've got simple needs. On the right side, you've got more complex needs. Your y-axis is spatial maturity. Low at the bottom, high at the top. So we'll start our spatial journey with the bottom left corner, where the need is simple and the spatial maturity is high. And I call that corner low-cost exploration. And if you remember from the examples that I shared, Dyneco is an organization that I would put in this corner. Why? Because they're just starting their journey, their spatial journey. And what they're looking for is a really low-cost, maybe open-source solutions to let organizations like Dyneco to explore possibilities of spatial analytics. The next quadrant that we're going to talk about, or the next phase, is going to be where is the top left corner, where the need is simple and spatial maturity is high. And I call this corner easy, scalable tool corner. And companies like Telecom Co., I would have them fall in this corner, mainly because these companies understand the value of spatial analytics. They have a lot of rich data that they can work with. What they're really looking for is ability to scale up, their toolkit, the spatial toolkit, and the spatial analytics that they can perform. All right, moving on to the third phase. Now we're going to move to the bottom right corner, where the need is complex and your spatial maturity is high. And I call that corner link analytics to results corner. And companies like Chemco that I talked about earlier are companies that would fall in this particular quadrant. I did mention that they're low on spatial maturity, but they're right on the cusp of going into high spatial maturity. And that's why I call them, I call this quadrant link analytics to results, mainly because these companies want to go beyond the descriptive analytics that they're doing. And they want to go into the spatial predictive analytics and tie that back to the results. The last corner that's left, of course, is where the organization need is complex and spatial maturity is pretty high. And I call that corner policies and self-learning. And from my examples earlier, the company that falls in this quadrant is the QSR code. If you remember, what they were doing was they had a very ambitious growth plan where the franchisees weren't in alignment with that growth plan. So overall, if you think about it, these companies are pretty spatially matured and they understand their spatial needs. What they are trying to do is really kind of go beyond the spatial analytics and all of that. What they're doing is creating or maneuvering their policies to make things happen with the spatial work that they've been kind of working on or have been doing for a while. So overall, if you look at it, they're really kind of 4 stages of your spatial journey. And I guess the takeaway from this slide for all of you is to see, the organization that you're part of or the clients that you're working for, which part of the spatial journey are they in? Because based on where they are, you will have to tweak your results and the value that you're generating according to that particular phase. All right. So with that said, let me kind of wrap it up. The future for spatial analytics is bright, as you saw with the key speaker note. There's a lot of things that are happening out there in the spatial world, and the future is very bright. There's a lot happening, and the companies are getting on the kind of bandwagon of spatial analytics. But you have to take advantage of this opportunity. How do you take advantage? Let me give you 5 things as takeaways from this this presentation that you can take home and see if you can apply that to take opportunity of this really great time for spatial analytics. The first one is think about the business problem. Strategize how to unlock that problem. Second is team up. Take your stakeholders on the journey with you. You will get to the destination much faster if you just work in silos. The third one is the work that you do is actually bringing a lot of change. Your spatial solutions are really awesome, but really they can't go anywhere unless you plan for that change and you bring people into the folds. So basically the main point there is plan for the change. And the last one is basically think about scaling up people, scaling up technology, all of that, because with ease of access and use, you will be able to kind of deliver the awesome work that you've done to your end users and the end stakeholders. And with that, things will stick much better with the end people or the end users of your work. And lastly, what I will leave you with today is that it's never about the data. It's never about the tools. It's never about the models. Your focus should always be on results. So always talk about results and go beyond your data, tools, and models. So with that, let me open up the floor for questions and see if you have any.
Hi there, Bilal. Yeah, we've got quite a few questions that have come in on the chat. The first of which is about the telco use case that you mentioned. So Joshua Hiwatig asked, could you share more detail on the optimization solution for the telco use case? Was there any particular geospatial technique that your team used?
Yeah, so it all started with something very simple, that project. It was just ability for us to look at the small tiles, geographical tiles for which we had kind of, the spatial data for. And this was less about the the customers where they reside, because that's very easy to look at. It was more about the signals the 5G towers emit, because 5G take signals don't go too far. And the good thing is, because they were a telecom company, they had ability to see how far those signals go. And so what we did on our side was we combined the two kind of pieces of information, which was the underlying customers, and then how far the signals travel, and then where the towers are, and combine all of that together to create simple visuals for people to look at, to be able to sell our results. But most importantly, what we did was we did linear optimization. So there was a lot of on the back end, there were some optimization techniques that we went through to come up with the right number of towers that would reach the most customers that they were trying to cover.
Fantastic. Thanks for expanding on that one, Bilal. We do have a lot more questions in the chat, but we're actually meant to be cracking on with the next presentation shortly. So maybe we just take one more before we go to the next one. And this is from Jiten Druru Lakaraju. I'm very sorry again if my pronunciation isn't good. I promise I'm doing my best here. What are the best sources or providers of mobile data, or how do you recommend doing an evaluation of mobile data?
Yeah, so I think the mobile data, well, if you think about mobile data, really the way it translates into is what we call the human mobility data, right? Because mobile data, what it provides you is basically the movement of people. And there are a lot of vendors that are out there. And in fact, I spent about a month, evaluating different vendors to just see what kind of data that they have available. I don't know if I can take the vendor's name, but there are a lot that are out there. It's a very new kind of area that every company is trying to explore and come up with, I guess, not only capture data, but be able to provide a much more aggregate data for a very quick consumption of this data, because the underlying data is huge. When I started exploring this data, I got a dump of 20 terabytes of data. So there are a lot of companies out there that work with this data set. Go explore and look at human mobility data. I know Cardo has access to this data set as well. Some of the vendors they have some vendors on their data observatory that can provide this data set. So yeah, work with Cardo, or maybe just Google is your best friend. Look up human mobility data, and you'll see there are a lot of vendors out there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Bilal. We really enjoyed your presentation. For everybody who's joined, if you are wanting to share this with colleagues or to watch this again, it will be available on YouTube. But Bilal, have a great day and enjoy the IPL cricket, which I think is going on at the moment. I will be for sure.
It is. Yes. No, thank you.
Speak to you soon. Okay. So just a quick reminder.